Dobbo, FA Cup this weekend away at Newport County. Firstly, what does the FA Cup mean to you? What are your best memories of it? Perhaps being in the dugout or perhaps watching from the sidelines. Any specific memories?
Yeah, I've got a brilliant memory of the FA Cup. We played Spurs at White Hart Lane a few years ago at Wickham. We were 2-0 up at half time, and they'd put out quite a strong side. When you look back at the team that they had that day, I went to do the team sheet and Eric Dyer walked out, and you think, oh wow, they've gone strong. And we went 3-2 up, so they come back, equalised 2. We went 3-2 up on 83 minutes. On 90 minutes, Dele Alli scored, equaliser, and 90 plus 7, Son scored with the last kick of the game. So we got beat 4-3. A hell of a game, brilliant game of football. And afterwards we went for a drink with Pochettino, who's a top guy, really great guy. And we sat in his office and we had a chat, and there was a few Spanish staff that were sort of on the periphery, and Gaz and I both speak a bit of Spanish, so we spoke to them about how we were learning Spanish and started speaking in Spanish, and they come alive, and then everybody ended up chatting together. And at the end of it, we were all high-fiving each other and hugging. It was great. But the respect, he said something which will stick with me for the rest of my career. He said, in Italy, Spain, Germany, he said, the small club come to the big club, they sit on the edge of their box and defend, the big club wins, everyone goes home. He said, I come to this country and everyone talks about the magic of the FA Cup. He said, you come to our home, he said, you attack us. He said, you attack us. He said, 5,000 crazy fans, you nearly beat us. He went, today I learnt about the magic of the FA Cup. I thought it was a lovely statement and sort of summed up the respect that he showed towards us after the game. I thought it was a great moment.
Newport County, obviously we were there 6 weeks ago. Does that result have absolutely any bearing on the game Saturday or on team selection?
No, I don't think so. I think they've changed their system over the last week, so we've got to be aware of that and the different threats they'll pose from that. We know from that game that they were very good for the first 20 minutes and put us under a lot of pressure, and so we've got to start the game better than we did down there. But we're well aware, having seen them recently, we're well aware of the threats they pose and the people that they've got playing for them. So I guess we have a little bit of an advantage in the fact that we're not going in blind, but we'd never do that anyway. We'd always do our homework. So I think it'll be a different game from the one that we played there last time. They'll be more wary of us and our threats. We'll be more wary of them. But it's a good game, one we're looking forward to. We want to progress in the cup. FA Cup's important, and I think for the history of football in this country, I think we really need to continue to respect this competition, because we've lost a little bit of respect, I think, around the League Cup and the sides that are being put out in that now. I think it's really important that we've got a wonderful competition in this country that we really need to continue to respect.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn Morris perhaps won't be involved Saturday at Newport. Does he take Holtham's out on loan? What's his situation? If he was to be recalled, is he cup tied or can he still feature?
No, Tate can come back, yeah, and that's something that we'll be looking to do. Obviously losing Glenn for a period of time, so we need to cover ourselves, and so Tate will come back into the fold.
Is that long term for Glenn, or is it difficult to say at this stage?
Difficult to say. I think it's not short term. Unfortunately, it's not a good one. So how long that's going to take will depend on a few different factors. We need to let it settle down first and get a good steer of it this week. And there's no rush to progress him back. It's not something that he's going to come back to in the next week or two. So we'll just give him that time and see how he gets on.
Any chance of a Ewan Williams or Gareth McCleary or Johnny Smith for this weekend?
Unlikely this weekend. Yeah, unlikely.
Lovely. Dobbo, appreciate it. Thank you. Matt Davison, Radio Kent, please.
You're trying to go up this season, so where does an FA Cup fit in with that and the priorities of the club?
As I said, I think it's about respect of the competition. We want to win every single game, and I don't think we'd sacrifice one for the other. I think it's important for the club and the finances of the club to get a run and hopefully a big game further down the line. So we don't look at it as a distraction. We look at it as a possibility to pick up a win and kickstart a difficult period.
That's the motivation, I guess, for you and for all the players as well. It's 2 wins away from possibly playing potentially one of the biggest clubs in the country, isn't it?
Yeah, and you want to test yourself against the very best. Whether you're a player or a coach, you want to come up against these people. And over the years, I've been really fortunate enough to work against the likes of Pep Guardiola in cup games, and we spent an hour in his office after a game against Man City in I think it was the League Cup. and to share that time and to discuss football and tactics and get an insight into the very top people in this game is absolutely fascinating. So from our perspective, it's always good to pit your wits against the very best. I think the players are no different. They love the big games, and particularly playing at the big stadiums, and hopeful that their careers will take them there at some stage. But these are always great tasters and obviously leave good memories.
That's obviously what Gills fans and all of you will want first week in January. Have you ever been on the opposite side? You've played a game where everybody thought you'd win and you didn't.
Yeah, we've played. Luckily, we've never been beaten by non-league competitions, as far as I'm aware. But we have. We played Walsall in the FA Cup a few years back with Wycombe. Walsall were League Two. We were League One. They beat us 2-0. So you know, we're well aware that these games can throw up unusual results, and sometimes people that are struggling in the league can play free in the cup because it's a different competition. You know, they're a little bit more relaxed, and all of a sudden you get a better performance out of them. So, you know, we're well aware of the problems that could be posed this weekend, but we have to be professional in our manner. We have to approach it in the same manner as we do every other game, and show Newport absolute respect for the abilities that they've got.
Would you pick a different side because it's a cup tie than if you were, say, away to Newport in the league this weekend?
You might possibly look at one or two things, but in fairness, the players that we're talking about have been around it, and it's not like we're making wholesale changes or that there'll be somebody left field. It's going to be the group of boys that have represented us this season and those that have done well for us.
You've beaten Newport once this season and came up against Newport on a good day. I think they performed a lot better than many people expected on that day. What are you expecting at the weekend? The
same again, if I'm honest. Yeah, they're at home and they'll look to attack us. You know, it's a good game for them. They got a good win last weekend, so you'd think their tails will be up after that game, and they'll be looking to build on that. So I expect a very difficult proposition. I expect them to come with a little bit of confidence about them, and it's up to us to stamp down on that confidence and assert ourselves on the game.
Done more penalties this week because it goes to penalties after extra time. You can't bring Newport back here in the FA Cup now. Yeah,
it's a shame. I think back in the day when we used to have the replays, I thought it was always good for clubs, particularly when they pulled out a big club and got a draw, and it would give them an extra game. It's something that we'll look at. The boys practice penalties on a regular basis after training anyway, so it's something that we obviously need to be aware of, and with extra time or whatever. So we'll plan for every eventuality.
Obviously missed one last week. Might there be a change? Should you get a penalty in the 90?
There might be. Yeah, there might be. We've got several decent penalty takers. We need to trust them. It happens. So many good players have missed penalties over the years, and as I said after the game the other day, Daki's an excellent technician. Somebody that we would always rely on in that situation. So it's unusual for him not to hit the back of the net. Obviously disappointing because it was the goal that sort of cost us the game ultimately, losing by one. But we have absolute faith in Daki, and whoever takes the penalties, they put their neck on the block, and I respect that.
You conceded first in the last 4 games, which is something that we weren't doing at all earlier on in the season. It's the start to the game, something you're drilling into the players a bit more. Yes,
absolutely. I thought last weekend we played with loads of heart and not enough head, and that was our downfall. We've had a good look this week actually on trends. So the last 5 games and the 5 games before that, to see where we're different, what's happened, what's changed, and it's been quite surprising, the findings. We looked at energy levels and the physical metrics that we use, and actually we've run harder in the last 5 games, so there's been no drop off of effort or attitude. The boys have run harder, and that's been an upward trend from the very start of the season. So we've been better and better and better throughout the course of the season so far, even though games fluctuate because of the manner of the games and whatever. And then we looked at the stats for the previous 5 games and the recent 5 games, excluding Grimsby for obvious reasons, so that we got a fair reflection of 11v11. And bizarrely, we've created more shots on target and more shots on goal over the last 5 games, and we've decreased the amount of shots on our goal and decreased the amount of shots on target compared to what was an even amount of numbers beforehand. So bizarrely, we've performed better according to the stats at both ends of the pitch. The killer has been that out of, I think it was 23 shots, we've scored 4. So that's 23 shots on target in those games. We've scored 4. The opposition has scored 7 in 10. So, I mean, 70% conversion rate is an unreal conversion rate, and something that, if it sustains, which it won't, would probably mean we wouldn't win another game this season. That's how drastic it's been. So if any of our centre forwards start hitting 7 goals in every 10 shots on target, we'll sell them to the Premier League for millions. You know, it's a bit of a freak situation, but I think also we've got to bear in mind that we've played opponents that have brought players down from the division above, and so there's Mendes, Lang, Patterson, Udo. They're going to be a little bit more clinical in them situations, and they've punished us. We've also got to be aware of, stats bring a balance to a story, but there's also your eyes. You've got to trust your eyes and your experience and your knowledge to understand where we've got things wrong, and we've made mistakes in recent games that have cost us. So it's been an interesting week on that side. We're not a million miles away, that's for sure, but we've just got to be a little bit tighter in some areas. So
do those stats tell you actually don't need to do much different?
Yeah, although there are little tweaks in there that we do need to make. So it's hope's not strategy. You can't go, well, hopefully this will dry up. Their shots on target will dry up and we'll get the wins. What it tells you is that it's highly unlikely to be sustainable, those shots against us and resulting in goals between now and the end of the season. That's going to change. So hopefully we won't have a season of people being that clinical against us. It's a freak period actually, but we've made mistakes there, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to deal with the mistakes. We had a really good video session on Tuesday with the boys. We went through it, we debriefed. I think it's something that they're going to take into the weekend. We were quite specific in terms of the areas that we felt we needed to improve, and I think if you look at before half-time and after half-time, we tweaked it at half-time and we improved second half. So, when we do our analysis, I think it's important that we look at all areas. We don't just go, well, that's a defeat, so everything didn't work. Sometimes things do work. Sometimes you can do things a little bit better. And actually, it's something that myself and Gaz have spoken about for a long time over the years. He always says to me that in 14, 15 years of working together, I've never said to him, I told you so, after a game. And there's a reason behind that. Let's say that Gaz wanted to pick a 5-3-2 and I wanted to pick a 4-4-2. The one thing I can do at the end of the game, if he's pulled rank, is be able to say that your 5-3-2 didn't work, because we have all the evidence and we have the hindsight. The one thing I can't do is prove that my 4-4-2 would have been better, because if we've been beaten 2-0 in a 5-3-2, we could easily have been beaten 4-0 in a 4-4-2. There's no proof behind it. So I never do that, because it's a futile argument. We've got to be a little bit better, a little bit more intelligent in our analysis. They're the sort of conversations that happen in pubs and around the country, and everybody sort of gives their version of what should have happened. But until you can actually prove it, and until someone invents a time machine and takes you back to 3 o'clock and the exact same conditions and the exact same players and same mentalities, you're never going to be able to prove like for like. So I steer clear of saying, well, if we had done this, this would definitely have happened, because until you can prove it, you can't. So I'd like to think we're a little bit more intelligent in our analysis and the way that we look at things, and we don't just kind of go, well, we should have done that and everything will be all right.
Just a quick question on Gareth, just as you mentioned him just there. He's not been in the building yet, has he? But is he upping his involvement in any sense?
Similar amount as he's done. I think there's only the one game, the Colchester game, that he wasn't involved in. That was a cup game. The rest of them, he's been involved in team selection, in tactics. We have Zoom calls. I understand the difficulty for him, because it's hard for him to feel it, being around in the environment, and he's somebody that very much wants to be in the middle of everything. So that's been tough for him, and sort of we're trying to relay that as best we can. It's not an ideal situation, nobody asked for it, not least Gaz, but it's something that we're working through, and hopefully he'll be around us in some capacity fairly soon.
Thank you.
Just mentioned sort of formations. You've been using quite a few different sort of systems and formations, haven't you, of late? Would you prefer a settled sort of?
Yeah, I think probably more often than not, you're probably going to see a 4-3-3 in the future. We are adaptable. I think I spoke about it last week. We have got an adaptable group of players, and injuries and suspensions sometimes force your hand a little bit. We would like to have played probably with wingers and have a little bit more of an attacking threat in wide areas. We haven't had that in recent weeks, and so you've got to try and do something a little bit different. Obviously the suspensions last week have hurt us as well. Coming at a time with injuries, you marry it all up, and all of a sudden you're restricted on what you can do and the players that you can select. But that's why we have a squad, and we have to work through that. fingers crossed the boys will be coming back into the side and into the squad over the next couple of weeks, and it'll give us a greater option to choose different ways of playing. I think for me it's good to be unpredictable. I think once a team has a set way of playing and that's all they do, you become predictable pretty quickly, and we always like to play against the sides that are going to do the same thing over and over again. You know, it makes it easier to stop them. So for us to have that unpredictability and different ways of doing things, I think is a weapon for us going forward.
I think when your team sheet come out on Saturday, I think there's a few people scratching their head, including ourselves. So,
yeah.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
You talk about respecting the competition. What's your take on the lack of replays? Because I know, looking back at your own history at Wycombe, I think you had a good day at Villa Park once, didn't you? And
that's right, yeah, another one, yeah.
Potentially some clubs are going to miss out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no,
congestion.
Yeah, we've had some good ties over the years. I think sometimes they change too much in the game. You know, we've got a competition and a system that works over here, and has worked really well. And I think you lose. They talk about congestion, but the fans lose. It's the fans that miss out. So, you know, if you get a draw against a big club at home and you get an opportunity to go to an Old Trafford or somewhere like that, where a lot of the fans of those smaller clubs would never get an opportunity to go, and you no longer get the opportunity to go there because it then goes to extra time and penalties, I think it's a real loss for the fans and the romanticism of the competition. You know, I've loved over the years going to the big clubs, and you know, you get to see what it's like at the very top end of the game, and I think also for fans to go and see these top players playing at great stadiums is a great day out for them. So there's a lot of young fans that are going to miss that. You know, I don't agree with the old. I think sometimes you used to have about 6 replays, didn't they, back in the FA Cup back in the day, and you know, that's a little bit much. But to take it away from the fans, I think is tough.
Mentioned that Glenn's not going to be around for a while. Was there a sort of thought about maybe go out and getting another senior keeper to help sort of Jake?
Not at the moment. Like Jake's been patient. He's had to wait his chance. You know, I think I said at the weekend there was a possibility he could have gone out on loan at the start of the season, and he chose to stay and fight for his place. He wanted to be around the club. He thinks a lot of the club. You know, I know him and Glenn have sort of dovetailed in recent seasons, and I think he might have started the season at one stage, and then Glenn came in when he got injured. So he's done brilliant in training. He's been excellent in training. His attitude's first class, and now it's an opportunity for him to present himself and say, I'm number one. That's all you can ask for people, and he's trained as well as we could wish for him to train. So now's his opportunity, and let's see if he takes it.
You've got Sam Gell back as well. He's a young player still, isn't he? But did you think you missed him at the weekend, and how big has he become in this team now? Yeah.
His pace and recovery skills are first class at this level. And when you've got a quick striker like Udo, you know, it helps to have someone like Gailey around. He is a loss. He's maturing rapidly. He's still a young player, and there are still things that he needs to learn. But he's a keen lad to learn. He wants to get better. He wants to improve, and I think he is getting better week by week and month by month. So he's a loss for us because of the form that he showed so far this season, and we've got him back this weekend, which will be great for the team.
There's a couple of others on foot bookings, I think, aren't there? Is it sort of card-happy referees, or do you think it's the way you're playing now that you're getting sort of these suspensions?
Yeah, I think we had a card-happy referee, didn't we, recently? I think the way we play, we're competitive, and we wouldn't take that out of the players. I'm disappointed if a booking is for something petulant. We don't want to lose players through petulance, but absolutely if they're in the fight and they're putting tackles in and they're getting booked for the odd mistime tackle, then I don't have any issues with that. Ideally you'd like to be more controlled, but they're wholehearted, and as I said earlier, they played so much with their heart at the weekend that they forgot to think a little bit at times, and that was our undoing. And it's something that we've hopefully addressed this week. But you can't fault their effort and their willingness to fight for the club. They're all in, and they love the place at the moment.
Is that what you've had to sort of remind them? Don't get needless bookings.
Yeah. We don't want to lose players. You know, it's tough enough when you have a series of injuries and you lose players, maybe 3 or 4 at a time. But when you add a couple of suspensions in there as well, all of a sudden to lose sort of 5, 6, 7 players is tough. So yeah, it's just a little reminder not to do anything stupid. You know, we need these boys. We want to put our best side out as often as possible. We want to put our strongest squad out as often as possible. And if we don't get the chance to do that because of a little bit of petulance, it's stupid.
You mentioned Sam Gale, another young lad that's coming through the ranks. Logan Dobson's back from Welling, isn't he? What's the sort of thinking behind that? Yeah,
Logan's done great where he's been, so we're going to assess him and decide what to do next with him. But we're really happy with the progress he's made at the level that he's played at. So he'll come in with us for a week, and then we'll decide what we do next with him.
You must be pleased with the quality of players that are coming through your sort of disposal.
I really like our young players here. Yeah, I think there's a few there that have got a real chance of having careers in the game. If they can follow Gailey's march last season with the way that he went out on loan and then broke into the first team and stayed there, I'm really hopeful that there'll be one or two others that sort of follow that pathway. There's a good set of players underneath that as well, so the future's looking bright, and it's up to us to nurture them in the right way. And sometimes you just need a little bit of luck as a young player. Sometimes the door just opens for you through injury or suspension, and all of a sudden your career's kick-started. So they might need a little bit of luck along the way, but we've certainly got some good young players here that, you know, in time will hopefully represent the club for a long time to come.
Is it tomorrow night that the youth team have got their big
yes.
game as well? So
yeah.
A trip on their cards as well, haven't they?
Yeah. I was a youth team coach once, and I remember FA Youth Cup days. You know, they're far bigger than they should be to these young lads. So the day before, there's 18 new haircuts, and you know, normally at youth team games on a Saturday, there's a couple of parents watching them, and you say to them, how many tickets do you want? And all of a sudden, at 30, you know, there's after their schoolmates come in and what have you. So they're big days, but actually, in the greater scheme of things, they're only going to play in front of a crowd that they'll play at a non-league level. You know, but for these boys, it's their biggest one. It's the first one in a stadium, and the first one that really means something. So, yeah, I always found that the best players actually almost put themselves out of a contract because they overthought it, and you know, boys that were great on a Saturday every weekend all of a sudden become really tense and nervous, and sometimes it'd be the one that's not doing great in the group that would be a little bit oblivious to it all and have the best game of the season, and all of a sudden the manager's looking at him and saying, he's a good player, we should sign him. And yeah, it was a strange competition, that one. They'll learn a lot from playing in it. I just hope that they do themselves justice and don't overthink it.
Thank you.
No problem.